Hi, my name is Contessa King, licensed embalmer and funeral director and embalming specialist with Frigid Fluid. This is my first webinar, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit, but we have a lot to cover today. I'll be speaking about the optical color correction in mortuary cosmetology, and I have some props here that we'll be able to look at. So this is Amelia. This is this head that I made in order to demonstrate discolorations. I also have this hand that I've had laying around. So we'll look at cosmetizing some hands. And there's a couple other props that we can use in order to cover some theory. First, I just want to go over some things. We have so much theory to talk about, but I want to go as fast as possible in order to do the most demonstration. I know everybody's a funeral professional here, so we all understand the importance of why cosmetics matter, the impact of the restorative process, and how that looks and feels to families. They complete the restorative process. They're what the family sees. We could do a perfect reconstruction or restoration, and that is all the underlying damage. The family should not see that. They should not see our work other than the contour, the surface of the skin. But what they're going to remember is cosmetics because that's what they can see. So I really want to focus on that, bridging the gap between what we're doing and what the family will eventually see. Okay, so everything that we're doing is in the process of identification and recognition. So our human brains, they process tonal information almost instantaneously, especially before someone consciously registers the structure in the form. So if something is slightly off in form, if it is more off in color and tonal capacity, then it alarms our brain into thinking that something is very wrong. If somebody looks sick or pale or sallow, those yellow tones, if they look too pink, they feel too cosmetic. If they're too orange, they feel too artificial. It's these subtle cues that we have to be able to control in order to control the experience that a family has, because that's the entirety of the viewing process. And I don't need to preach to a room or a group of preachers, but I think we all understand how important, and we could traumatize 3 generations sitting in a room, or we can impact them for the rest of their lives. I really want to look over the cosmetics that we have quickly. So Amanda does a great job of discussing this, and if you want to look and go back to either of our videos at any time, you can see these on YouTube, so remember to like and subscribe. But here's our kit, and we're going to look at some cosmetics outside of the kit as well. Amanda did an amazing job of designing these cosmetics. They are vegan, they're cruelty-free, they dry down, they're not traditional at all. And the way that we can manipulate these cosmetics go to extreme levels once you understand how to use them. And that's really what I want to drive today is how to use these. And even if you take some of this theory and apply it to whatever you have, at least it will serve you well in a myriad of circumstances. Okay, so some of our color correctors, which looks like this. I wonder if you can see it better on the screen. These are typically for underpainting and primer. The 2 color correctors here are more fluid than the cream cosmetics, while the advanced color correctors are more of the consistency of the cream cosmetic line. Yes, they're meant to underpaint or correct discolorations underneath our cream cosmetic makeup, but I will show you how I use them in different ways as well, because they can really alter the way that we're building our cosmetics and mixing them within our cream cosmetics. And then our advanced color correctors, I physically cannot do my job day to day without any of this, but I really rely heavily on those color correctors because I tend to mix so many colors, and we'll talk about exactly what I do. So this is a palette that we'll look at a little bit later, but this is pretty much what my palettes look like every day. So you can see here are the color correctors. I included some of the primers, and then these are some of our cream cosmetics, as well as a blush tone and another color corrector here, the yellow, the turmeric. You see me awkwardly skip through this presentation as well. We have two cream blushes. So one of them is peony pink, and the other one is a rose taupe. So you can see those on the table over here. And then we have things like our matte lipstick. This is designed by Amanda to be really universally loved for everyone, especially for men. If we need to reach for something quick, that's when that tube of lipstick comes in handy. The lip palette is fantastic. I want to also say again, these can be pushed to extremes, so they can be mixed with something like a Vaseline or some kind of thinner or emulsifier to give it more of a glossy look versus just a natural finish or more of like a satin or matte finish. And then our eyeshadow palette. I travel with my kit everywhere every day, and I primarily am using this to shadow as well as do any hair restorations, and we'll look at that a little bit closer to the end. And then setting spray. I go through bottles of this, and sometimes I use it on my own makeup if I forget to set my makeup. It's really great. It's our fiber hold spray. So this should be used either after you're done with all of your cosmetic, or I'm using it continuously to apply to each layer. So as my cosmetics are drying and setting, applying a spritz and letting that dry and set, and then building my layers. Let's see. I call this liquid gold, but Lanol Care, thank you, Mel, for this one. And look how pretty it is. I also go through bottles of this every day, whether it's spraying it on individuals' hands to keep them really nice and moisturized. Also, if you look at my nails, please don't. I have a lot of anxiety and we're too stressed to get them done. But the Lanol Care is beautiful. It has lanolin, of course, and it's hydrating, moisturizing. I use it as well as a base for my cosmetics, and sometimes whenever I need to, I can mix it in with my cosmetics to make them a little bit thinner as well and keep those moisturizing properties. And it looks beautiful. It never looks greasy. I don't know how it's possible. I think the skin just drinks it. It's stunning. Okay, so I want to go through things again very quickly. We're going to look at the optical layering of cosmetics so that we're tricking the eye and manipulating the variables of the skin. So of course, there's discolorations before and after embalming. I won't sit here and go through all of the signs because you should know all of that science, but post-mortem skin and tissue is structurally different and reflects light completely differently than living skin. Living skin has that translucency and warmth, and it's almost like an inner glow, and that's from obviously our circulation, and it's also from the light traveling through the layers. And we'll look at the anatomy a little bit more, but we have primary concerns. And Amelia's head, when I was trying to make this and think of how to do it, is kind of the multitude of a bunch of these issues. So you can see on the back of the head, this is darker, so this is supposed to be some post-mortem stain. Well, pretty much everything is post-mortem stain. This is more advanced decomposition, as you would say, but you can see marbling. So where the fluids, the blood specifically, has become from intravascular to extravascular, and it's seeped interstitially, and it has stained our tissues, creating that marbling effect. I've also, it's hard to tell in this light, but she's very green, and that is to show where there is bilirubin interstitially that was chemically had a chemical reaction with the formaldehyde that we introduced. What it is not on here is graying, because it would be less interesting to demonstrate for cosmetics, although it'd be more realistic because all of those redder discolorations would really be grayed out with the formaldehyde. Gray is a neutral color, so it's a lot easier to do cosmetics on somebody that is gray than green and red and purple. So that's why I've painted her this color. This is my friend Amelia, by the way. We're gonna see pictures of her later, but she let me steal her face. So thank you, Amelia. She's truly the greatest person in the entire world, and I'm obsessed with her. So much so that I'm happy to stare at her to make something like this. But okay, so to continue, and then dehydration is one of those final evil things, right? It's a deep brown. It changes everything that we're dealing with, and we'll look at the structure of why that's a little different. But also, even just where our intrinsic dyes have, maybe they walled off in some area. There's ischemic tissue and things have not reached proper distribution to all of the capillaries, and so you see kind of a little bit more of a splotchier texture. That is partially due to fluids, but it's also due to condition. So I've added some really splotchy places on Amelia that can kind of demonstrate that. All these things we have to overcome. Obviously embalming, but secondary cosmetizing. So some of the things that I see and that I hear about all the time are somebody looks like they're wearing too much makeup. How many times have we told somebody what we do in our profession and they say, oh my goodness, I saw my grandpa or I saw my family member and they looked absolutely terrible and they looked like they were wearing so much makeup and la la la, and it makes your heart sink, and it's so heartbreaking because I hope that we all know how good of work that we can do. And it's because we just have to do things a little bit differently. Even when somebody needs completely opaque cosmetics, we should be painting with the idea of transparency. So we're hyper realistic painting when there's that much trauma or illness, and we really need to bring it back to that. Things can look really artificial, they can look flat, especially as lighting changes, whether you're at a church or the funeral home where it's more controlled, everything needs to look good under any lighting. Sometimes you'll hear people talk about cosmetizing under the funeral home lighting, under those beautiful pink and red lighting, the torch lights. And I would just say that I disagree personally. You can do whatever you'd like to do. I feel like it's, when you're in an elevator or a hospital and it's terrible lighting and you go, oh my gosh, I can see every pore, and you go, my makeup is going to look awful. That's how we need to think about doing our cosmetics. If you can make somebody look beautiful and flawless and perfect under the most intense, bright, mix of yellow and white, it should really be almost like an outdoor lighting, then they will look amazing indoors. Amazing every single time. So those are some things that we have to overcome. And then, of course, the improper texture and things that are drawing our attention away from our cosmetics and to the trauma or illness itself. But the cosmetics are here to diffuse those things. And then, of course, shade matching and all the identifying markers that make somebody themselves. Okay, really, really fast. So this is my general order of cosmetizing. So we'll do any of our superficial restorations, wax, silicone, latex, base coats, anything that you use, right? Once that is done, also the skin should be completely prepped. There should be no massage creams, no oils, nothing. So the best thing that I would do is to go with a dry hair cleaner and make sure that the skin is completely stripped. I've actually already gone over my head and any of my armatures with dry hair cleaner to make sure it's completely free of any oils from my hands or just dust that's gone on them. It should be the same for the people in our care. And then a superficial restoration, After that, once everything is prepped, so the contours are correct, we'll go into color correction or underpainting. We could be color correcting using reds for our greens. We could be using our color correctors like this that are, a bit thinner and get more of an even color surface. And then after that, we're matching to skin tone, and that's to general skin tone. And you look at somebody and you squint and you go, okay, you're overall kind of this one color. That's what we're doing. So that's why in my palette, I'll have something like this where you can see I've picked kind of a general shade range. I never want to pick one color because people just aren't one color, and you'll hear me talk about that all the time. And if you ever hear me speak at anything that I'm doing, I will annoy you by how much I say that, but people are not one color. Okay, after that, we will create a natural variegation. We'll include blushing. Wherever there's redness, we'll create layers of cool areas, all of the different aspects of colors within that person. And then we can go into shadow for depth. I like to do it with cream cosmetics gently, and then later I can go in with my powders. But what I really want to make sure is clear is, and I say it at number 9, it's final set and powder. Once you do everything with cream cosmetics, so you create your detail, veins, vessels, freckles, everything, the variegation, all of your layering, that is when you can set with powder. Once you set with powder, do not continue to go back in. Once you set, you're pretty much set, except if you want to go in with other powders. So that's where our eyeshadow palette comes in handy, and you can build up layers with the skin tones or create any more detail, but that's the thing I want to make the most clear is once you set, you're set. Of course, between all of these layers, we can be using the fiber hold spray, and then we can go over any hair restorations or touch-ups and use our dry hair cleaner and a spoolie to brush any cosmetic out. And then if we want to create an extra pop, we could go in with something like the white advanced color corrector if you need to go over white hair with a spoolie. And then I would set that again with the white in the eyeshadow palette or use any of the tones. Amanda was very clever in designing this to be great for shadowing, but also, which is, giving it depth in multitudes of different lightings and creating more of that lifelike appearance, but also to go over any hair colors. And so she's very clever, but I love that. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna blast through this because there's so much to show you all. Really quick, the layers of the skin. So the epidermis contains melanocytes. We know that that's where melanin is produced, which is responsible for our baseline complexion. Beneath the epidermis lies the dermis, and this is divided in 2 layers, so the papillary and the reticular. The papillary layer is composed of connective tissue, interwoven with nerves and blood vessels. That's where our color is coming from, it's where the blood is showing through under the skin. The reticular dermis contains the larger vessels, and those branch into smaller ones in the papillary layer. So these contribute to the red and the pink tones through the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So like example, when you just look at your veins here, but where you can see the flushing in the cheeks or more of the veining under your eyes or on top of your eyes. And that's also where we see bilirubin and beta carotene, which contribute to the sallow tones or olive toned skin. And then the hypodermis, that's composed of our adipose tissue. So it's absorbing and reflecting the least amount of light. So the light entering the skin at specific wavelengths undergoes reflection, absorption, and scattering. And it's reflecting back towards the observer. It's called subsurface scattering, and that creates this translucent inner glow that we associate with living individuals. So why are we thinking about living skin? Because like I said, everything anatomically changes when we are dealing with our deceased individuals. And that's where we need to think about cosmetizing with these optical structures, because the skin is changed. We're missing so many of those factors, and even with dehydration, with the physical structure is completely changed. So we have to recreate these layers where the light is coming through and trick our brain into making this person look believably, I don't want to say living, but restful and at peace. So we can't do that through one opaque layer. We have to do that through optical layering. And that looks like our underlying discoloration. We need to neutralize it. You're gonna hear me cough, I've been really sick. And then we'll go over our cosmetic washes. And these are really thin layers of cosmetic that we're setting in between. And then our final complexion balance. And that's where we're wrapping everything up. So that light is going to travel through those thin layers and hopefully read back in an appropriate way. Okay, what's our question? That's a good question. Actually, I'm not sure because I build these. So I sculpted this and turned it into silicone and painted it. I'm so sorry, excuse me, that's disgusting. This was like an old version that I had for the first time I did this, and I was going to bring it in. So these heads, I unfortunately built by hand, so I don't know if I think of something, or you can always DM me and then I can see what I can look for. But maybe one day they'll be a little bit more wildly accessible. If somebody wants to pay me to do that, let me know. But I can't do that at this moment, so I'm not sure. I'm really sorry. Okay, well, to continue, and we'll come back to questions in just a little bit, but I want to go over some basic color theory. So we'll look at this a little bit more when we're mixing, but let's just kind of remind ourselves of the general color wheel and how we're going to create different colors. And one of the things that I want to touch on really quickly, because we're going to use a lot of this color, is to create almost a black tone. And the reason I have something like this for a palette that's for somebody really, really light is because I'll still bring in the same theory. And then if you wanted to make moles or different accent details, we should all know how to do this. When we're making as close to black as possible, and we have the advanced color correctors. Excuse me, I'm dying. No pun intended. This is just not fun. Everybody take your vitamin C as soon as you get home today from work. Okay, so if we're going to make as close to black as possible, and we're looking at our color wheel, we have to eliminate the light colors first. So that's orange, yellow, and that leaves us with our red, our blue, and our green. And if you look at the color wheel, we say, okay, green is opposite of red, but actually it's not really. Red is opposite of green, blue. And this is something that you'll see me talk about a lot again, but I think it's really important. If we are to take our green, oh my goodness, it really is bad out here. And we mix it with the red. I'm going to say an even amount of red. I'm just going to be on YouTube coughing for the rest of my life. Okay. It comes out, I don't know if you can see this really well. It's very reddish. Oh my goodness. We're dying out here. It's very red. Oh my goodness. Okay. But that's because green is warm inherently. Red is a primary color and green is a secondary color. So it's, of course, yellow and blue. So that means that there's more warm tones than there are to cool tones. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue to compensate for that. Oh my God. Okay, it's still a little bit red, so I'm gonna go in with some more green. Okay, and you create this very dark pigment. Oh my goodness, I hope that that was it. This is destroying me. Now we have to watch out for that really scary bug that's making everybody sick, as well as just the general summer cold. Okay, so I feel like that example gives us a lot of our color theory. We can create this really dark color, and then if we want to lighten it, we can move in with our oranges to create more of our brown tones. You can do this with yellow as well. If you do this with white, it will look a bit more washed out. It'll kind of gray itself out. But you can see we can get lighter and lighter brown tones. And we'll use those in a second. Okay. This is something that I look at a lot because I want to show the different layers of the face and how the variegation comes through. So you have these cool areas, especially around the mouth, and I will demonstrate cosmetizing that, especially in men. And they kind of go under the eyes, but again, humans are not one color. So when we reach for one base color, it just is never going to look realistic. It will look cosmetized. So you can see the cool tones, especially where there's hair and stubble coming through. And that's a really important feature to bring back in, as well as warm tones. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. So where the sun is hitting, and you can bring in things like rose taupe to be subtle, or our reds or oranges. A good example of kind of cooler tones, this is just a prosthetic that I had made for a presentation a long while back, but when I'm painting it, when I'm painting anything with silicone, I'm using thin washes of color to layer this, so you can see how bright the colors are. And you can see how much green is around his face and around his mouth and all these cool areas. And those are the things we need to bring back into our cosmetizing when we're cosmetizing an individual. I think it's hard for us to conceptualize putting green into our cosmetics, but it is really, really important. And even when somebody it has green tones in their skin because of things like jaundice and cirrhosis, we can even use that to our advantage in really specific ways, because we can let those areas shine through so it looks more realistic, and then cover the areas where we don't want it to show so they look not sick. And all this it's to say is helps us to create all of our detail. So we should be creating veins, vessels, moles, everything should be going back onto that person. I also want to talk about hands really quick because I think it's often skipped. Our veins in our hands and those cool tones between our knuckles. All something that we should be bringing back in, especially when we're doing opaque cosmetics. Something we should consider. And I look to my friends in anaplastology a lot, and who do like somatic prosthetics and creating hands. You can see all of the colors that they are bringing back in, and all of those things that they're considering. Oh my goodness, this is destroying me. Okay, and we did talk about hair touch-ups. Let's go to the practical application. We'll look at Amelia. I'm gonna zoom down a little bit. She let me share these pictures with you. This is when we were having a sleepover, but this is Amelia. She's literally so cute. She's gonna be laughing at me for coughing this entire time. But let's think about where we're going to start. I think you can see this pretty good. Okay. Okay. I love coughing live on camera for so many people to see. It's my absolute dream. You know, you wake up and you want to say, I'll become a mortician. And the next thing you know, you're coughing live for so many people on camera. It's fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna bring some dark brown, that's Castle Earth. And Oh my gosh, I'm so unwell. I also want to look at her mid face, and that's going to show me the lightest tones. I personally feel like when somebody's really dark in color from their postmortem uh, discolorations, it's so much harder to make people look really realistic and alive and to bring them to a lighter tone. It's really easy to make people too dark. It's harder to make them lighter in color. I fear that that did not help me. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is fantastic. Okay, let's grab some things. This is our brush kit. It's recently changed to black, which I think looks really nice. And I like to grab a lot of the fluffy brushes. And kind of a general mixing brush. They look really chic. Oh, nightmare fuel. I'm gonna grab some of our rose taupe. And with these, we can kind of bend things with our color correctors. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna stop talking for 1 second. And you guys are gonna watch me mix some colors. Oh, perfect. Also, for all of our funeral friends, get enough sleep. I never get enough sleep. I'm just gonna take some orange. I'm looking at her inner face. Because it's so easy to go too dark, I want to kind of find my lighter tones first because it gets a little tricky. This is going to look really off on her, but I think it will help to see this. Okay. We'll go over general areas and we'll blend this out. I don't know exactly what this is looking like, but I want to just do part of the face. And then I want to move. I don't know if you can still see me blending a little bit, but I want to move this in a darker direction. I'm going to grab some of that mixture that I made earlier. I've kind of skipped the underpainting part because we only have so much time. A little too cool. I do know that there's some deeper tones around her mouth. You can see that I really instantly go towards using my color correcting colors. Fantastic. I have to go to work after this too. So this is awesome. I want to bring out, because we are correcting the light underneath, I want to bring some orange in. I want that to really show through. And I'm going to take some red as well. She has these really pretty areas here. And then it goes a little deeper with the red. Kind of around here. And then you can always see, hers are not bad, but usually there's some redder tones here. For her, they're a little bit more brown. And that comes up to the side of the nose. I feel like bad ears are taking time out of your day to watch me cough on YouTube. How crazy is that? I'm gonna take a deeper brown and kind of see what that looks like. That'll be too dark. Okay. It's kind of around the lip. And I'm pulling these colors from that mixture that I had made earlier because it has those blues and those greens already mixed in it. So I'm already getting those cool areas of the skin. I don't know if you can see this the way that I can see it. I wonder if that helped. Okay. The eyes are a little bit more red in tone. So I'm going to mix some of my darker color with that red for the outside. There's so much to talk about and not enough time. Chris, what happens if we go past an hour? Oh, we're doing pretty okay. Okay, I'm gonna go on super speed mode. So I'm taking some of those brown tones on the outside here. And mix that like that. And then the inner corner has kind of some accent tones over here. And then there's cool tones under her eyes. So I'm going to take some more of my brown that I've been using. I take a little bit of blue off to the side. Almost aiming for a bluer, some orange in there to unsaturate the blue. And it comes up like that. And then I'm going to leave this unblended because I want to move progressively to kind of my transition colors with the red. And I want this to be a little bit lighter. Like I said, it's really easy to go too dark too fast. And we need to really brighten this color up. It's a little too light. Another reason why I really don't reach for white much at all, unless somebody is incredibly pale, is because it makes the colors a little bit more pastel-y. And I want them to be really pigmented. And the color correctors are incredibly just that. So I want to create these really bright colors like that. Let's take it up to the nose a little bit. That's too orange. But we have to also think that underneath this very orange color is green. So we can push our cosmetics. Awesome, fantastic. We can push our cosmetics more red to kind of cancel out the greener undertones. And like I said, our skin already naturally has a lot of green in it. I don't know what that's looking like from you guys, but I want to see. Okay. Where these areas are coming through, and these are more cool and brown, but they're still warm. And take that up the sides. So you can see I'm really grabbing cosmetic and placing it in these kind of general areas. It's really bright around here. I need to mix more blue tones in there. Those blue tones are really nice. If there was a peak here, look at the side around these areas. It's a little too cool. So fantastic. Yeah, we'll push it warmer. And that goes really underneath here. I think my friends are going to see this and they're gonna feel bad and try and bring me cold medicine today. I'm okay, guys. Just a cough. I think what's worse is this feels more emotionally damaging than physically, really. Okay, let's really bring some warmth to the chin. You can see it's really already trying to dry down. And I also am a big fan of kind of stippling like this. That's what I would be doing at work. Okay. I'm going to use some of my Castle Earth because it's easier to grab. You really could survive off of your color correctors alone, but you would go through them pretty quick. See, this is very cool. So I want to push this with some orange will lighten it, and I want to keep it a bit darker. So we can push it with a little bit of orange and a little bit of red. See what that pulls to. Yeah, that might be better. You can see that those darker tones come all the way up this way. I get the fluffy brush and I'm just gonna kind of blend some of these lighter tones in with my darker tones. Chris is the one that's helping me with all of this today. Chris, is this kind of coming through? Is skin tone? Okay. So this area I think will really show kind of where the color changes. Bring a little bit of blue. Really, you know what I'd like to do is bring a little bit of green even to my Castle Earth because that will keep some of the warmth in. It's a little too green. It'll keep some of the warmth in that the blue won't. And it will It's like quite nicely. And then you kind of take that orange. And I've made this a little bit more rosy. I should have a picture of the side of her face, but I think I've stirred it in really enough to know. You can really see how much it's changed, and I've also put my lighter colors away. I'll kind of blend that to the ear. It's pretty light. There's some brighter tones up here. I'm going to push that orange. Some warmth. And the circles are warmer. Just a little bit. Really considering all of those hyperpigmentation areas as well, where things just naturally change a bit. So, okay. That is such a good question. So the question was, do I like to apply things with a smaller brush rather than the big foundation brushes? And yes, and you can see because I'm working in patches. And just to kind of show you, oh my goodness, my phone wants to turn things sideways. Here we go. You can see how the colors are moving. These are really cool. This is where like our almost black color comes in, and I've kind of messed with it to warm. There's some greens in there that pushes orange lighter. So I can kind of pre-mix the palette. And then as I'm moving, I can simply dot on where I need to. So like if we need this area to be lighter, which we kind of do, then I can kind of fluff that in. If I take one big brush, yeah, you can move faster and you could put in general like bigger areas down. But this I find to be a lot more accurate. Let's move that just a little bit like this. There we go. I find it to be a lot more accurate. I don't know if you can see how much greener this is up here from the skin here now. Maybe that will help to kind of see it, but it does help me to work in a better way. So I tend to take a small brush with everything. Her neck is a lot more neutral. Look at that right now. And then if you guys do have questions while I'm working with this, it's actually a really prime time to ask anything because I really like multitasking. My favorite thing is when I have really, 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 really long days at work, and sometimes my friends will call me and they can tell me about their day, and I just keep working, and it helps me to really stay focused. So feel free to ask any questions. Oh yeah, I like that brown actually. It's quite nice. This almost just feels like a Bob Ross episode where you guys are just watching me paint, and it's not happy trees. It's not quite what we're doing, but I mean it's got to be somewhat relaxing outside of me violently coughing. Okay, there's usually some hyperpigmentation areas down in the neck. And once you kind of learn to identify these areas where you know that there's going to be cooler tones and warmer tones, I think me using a small brush like this is really nice because I kind of already know where I'm going to want to inherently put those colors. Oh, took that way too far. So you can see where I've placed it on the corner of the nose, but I'm not trying to drag it up. And then here I actually want to grab more of my oranges, and that really is kind of like this color. And that way I can highlight that area. And then the top of the lip as well. The lips I want to touch on really quickly. So me getting distracted instantly before doing what I'm saying. You can see that there's these warm colors in the middle that we need to add in. And for this, I don't want to use the lip palette. I want to show how I mix with what's already happening. So I want to take this a little bit redder, kind of using the base of our skin tones already. And I want to push it warm. So I might reach for a taupe. I don't want to use white is really what I want to drive home. Not especially for anybody that's melanated, we really don't need white to be in this. It's going to mess with how pigmented we need things to be, and I don't want to go there. So this is almost like a pinkier color. Guys, I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like I'm coughing less, and that's kind of amazing. Okay, I want to throw in a little orange. Orange and yellow will inherently bring up the color without losing the saturation. That is not pink enough. I'm gonna pull in really the corner. I just whisked a tiny bit of the corner of the peony pink. I'm gonna grab a little bit. It doesn't feel too pink. So I'm gonna grab some of that peony pink, and I'm gonna go in for the yellow right on that side. And the nice thing about having a palette is you can mix everything in this direction. So that way, when you come back to it with your little brush or however you do things, you can grab where you need it from. And that's pretty pink. So we would, and you know what? I'm gonna grab a lip brush as well because I love a lip brush. And yeah, what's the question? So the question is do we neutralize before layering in our cosmetics? And the answer is absolutely yes. There's a lot of times where we should be doing that. And I'll kind of pull the arm model over to begin with too. And if we want to look at that, it's harder with a silicone model, of course, especially with jaundice where there's so much green. I think it's really great to go in with something that's neutralizing beforehand. So almost doing really, really thin layers of red tones, especially where we need the red to pick up on, and then we can layer cosmetics from there. That is exactly everything we're talking about is like optical color layering. So we're changing the base color and neutralizing it from green to more neutral, which would be like a red over that, right? And then pushing it forward into the next layer and building those layers until we have something that looks really realistic and warmth, where it's kind of glowing from the inside out. And so that's really the objective goal. We don't have time for me to do that as much right now because I would have to let things sit and dry and we would spray between. But yes, that's what I would do at work, especially for heavier discolorations, but really anytime that there's severe discolorations, whether it's bruising, we can go in with yellow tones before and let them set. You really want to take the inverse of whatever you're covering. Mhm. Yes, that's so the question was how to make the cosmetics look more natural and not cakey, especially when they're going on thicker, when the skin texture is inherently more dry, especially if there's mature skin. This is where I have issues with things, not with these cosmetics, but specifically, we take care of people. Everybody's a little bit different. And so that's going to factor into these things. I mix the cosmetics with the Lanol Care, and I'm actually working on a thinner right now with Frigid Fluid. Uh, Amanda likes to use water. I prefer something with more moisturizing qualities. So I'll literally spray the Lanol Care and I'll mix in whatever pigment I'm using. And it blends so, I don't know how this works. It blends so beautifully. And it just lets me kind of paint these thinner washes over. And that way there's the moisturizing properties of the Lanol Care going into the skin. I actually want to pull this way more orange. That's what I do personally. Like I said, right now I'm working on a thinner with Frigid, and they've been really open to creating something like that. So keep your eyes open, and we'll let you know as we release things. But that is something that is a big consideration, especially when people are longer holds and we want to keep them as moisturized as possible. But for mature skin where it just inherently is a little bit more dry, I am always taking into consideration and mixing that in. Okay, guys, we're getting closer to ending. So I want to just really quickly, wow, there's so much to do. I feel like we need a part 3 for this whole situation. Um, we'll look at the arm really fast because that will be really helpful. I set my Lanol Care right into my palette, which is great. It's probably because I was coughing so much. But here's that palette. Really quick. Does anybody have any more questions? Oh, we still have a couple more minutes left. This one is a little deceiving because, of course, this is just a straight silicone hand. So there's no actual color to match it to other than the internal color that I had pigmented the silicone. I never got painted with any detail, but I think that either today or another time it would be a really good lesson in coloring a hand because we can add those details ourselves. So while we don't really have severe discolorations, we can. Mhm. So the question was, will Frigid be creating deeper tones in our cosmetic line? And the answer is yes. From the second I started working with Frigid, it was driving me crazy. About 2% of the people I take care of are truly of the Caucasian, really, really transparently white, like myself. And oh my goodness, it would drive me crazy. That's why whenever I go and talk places and try to teach about this, I'm always like, here's how I mix black, and here's how I make deeper colors, because you're right, Castle Earth doesn't go dark enough. But we have some deeper cream cosmetics uh, being made right now. Me and Amanda. Amanda and I are testing them. And then we are also making a black because it was driving me crazy. I like to add black, around the corners of my mouth and adding detail. And of course, for hair. And that's where a black is just so incredibly invaluable. I mean, that there's no way to live without it. I'm adding a tiny bit of green into this because this very pale color is not quite doing it for me. You can see me use a big brush, which I'm not a fan of, but you see how white this looks if I don't add in something to push it. I'm going to put some lavender. It's hard because we are not letting this dry down between. It's not. Okay. So the webinar is ending. Otherwise, I would take so much time and so much care to color correct all of these things. Guys, we didn't even get to the fun parts. I brought in so many different props today. But I do appreciate everybody listening. If you tune in, I will continue to go over topics like this. If there's a request, let me know. If there's something that you want me to specifically cover, I'm covering some sculpting techniques and reconstructive techniques, but I think this is something that we'll definitely revisit when there is a little bit more time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Amanda or the company, and we'll go over any questions at any time. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to YouTube. You're welcome to follow me on Instagram. You can find me at the Mortuary Contessa or my other account. And yeah, just stay in touch. I really appreciate you all listening to me cough for an hour. That was fun. And if there's any cosmetic questions, reach out. I hope you all have a really good day.